Are we back? Apologies. Last time, I think we worked it out that we lost connection, but I think Ryan's question, I was just coming to the end of it. So just let me know, Ryan, if I was able to answer that correctly. Guys who get back on, you know, please try and share again and try and get the movement going back again. Really sorry, obviously we're in another country, you know, whatever's happening up there in the air with the internet, you know, we're just trying to get through it all. Okay, so objectives now is I want to kind of round that top through. Alright, so I've established the square shape originally. Now I'm going to come through and round it through, and then I'm going to blend into that point again. Johnny, talk to me.
Well, I've come through my shape and I've basically cut my last quarter, which is basically the pivoting area. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the pivoting area, which is the centre back. This is the second pivot area, this bit here. Okay, and I'm checking it to make sure that my shape is round and that my shape is fluid. Okay, so pick up the hair horizontally, comb the hair out from the base, and check your shape. Make sure that it's round. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the shape is fluid throughout. So in this scenario, my horizontal shape is round and my vertical shape is round. Okay. Every time you cut a zone or a proportion of hair, make sure you check it, because what you don't want to do is get to a point where you've basically you lost the shape in its natural form. So if I know I want it to be round, I need to make sure that I'm constantly checking to make sure that it is round. Otherwise what will happen is you'd end up changing the shape and not even realizing, you know. Always check over the top, over the parting, and make sure that this central parting is really important to controlling the whole shape. Now I'm going to show you a few tricks. Hopefully you guys have logged back on. I'm sorry about the internet connection. If you have logged back on, please feel free to share it again as a part 2. I'm going to show you a trick that you can use. It's actually a bit of a cheating way of getting your balance, but it's very, very good for if you're training an assistant or a trainee, okay? And the key is this. What you do is you take a section from the forehead to the crown, crown to centre nape, okay? And you cut a round cutting line. That's your initial section number 1. Then you take a parallel section either side, you comb the hair out from the base, and you follow the same cutting line. So you should have 3 sections in the centre, which are cut round vertically and round horizontally. That way you've got about 1 inch and a bit of hair. Then you can come off it taking vertical sections following the cutting line around, because you have quite a large guide in the centre. Another way of doing it is cutting 1 section through the centre, then taking the middle bit as a guide, taking a vertical section either side and following that round this way. So you've got 1 guide here and 1 guide here, which makes that you have 4 quarters. And what happens is you can manage your 4 quarters independently a lot easier. So you've got basically 5 sections and then 5 sections and then 5 sections and 5 sections, rather than trying to cut the whole thing and guaranteeing the balance. So that's another way to secretly check cut this shape, and it's a good way to protect yourself. If you're a teacher and you've got a group of students who are learning how to layer for the first time round, you can, by isolating it into quarters, you can manage each quarter independently, so that way if any of the kids make a mistake, you've got a little bit of a security guard, because they haven't cut the whole of it, the whole of the shape. They've only cut 1 quarter. So that's basically what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, every time I pick the hair up, for it to be a nice rounded shape. Okay, every single time. I don't know if you can see that. And every time, no matter where you pick the hair cut up from, so I should be able to take any section from anywhere, and I should be able to pull the hair up. And then if you go above my shoulder, hopefully this will work. Anywhere you pick the hair up, you should have a round shape. Okay? And if I come this way, and I work horizontally this way, again, same principle. Oh, Mustn't do that, that's messy. Okay, that is a problem, because what will happen is I'll mark the hair. So always groom the hair. Comb it through. Groom the hair. Then you put your clip, okay?
We've got 10 Italian students that have been taking a class with us for the last 3 days, and if they see him not grooming properly after all the times that Johnny mentioned it to them, he would be in trouble for dinner tonight, aren't
yeah. We've had a fantastic time in Palm. We've done primary shapes, a primary shapes course, and it's been a lot of fun. Today they had their exams, and we're meeting them for dinner when we finish here. But what I'd like you to do, guys, if you have any questions on layering, I know that we've been asked to do a layered haircut for quite a while now, so if you do have any questions for layering, any long layering, please feel free to ask me. Let me give you at least 3 or 4 balance tips, okay? One of them is, if you're working your shape, try and keep your shoulder even and consistent, and then from there what you can do is you could basically rotate your body like this. So basically you're moving around. So you're keeping exactly the same angle, but you're rotating. That's one way of managing your balance. When you do the other side, it's a lot easier to work this way and work around like that than it is to work like this. Bend your spine. Another way is to count your sections. So I know from the hairline to the top of the ear was 4 sections, from the top of the ear to the pivoting area around the crown it was 2 sections, and then from the crown to the centre in total was 3 sections. Okay? So by understanding the sectioning pattern, I can understand my balance and control my balance. The next thing is to guarantee the centre point. The centre area guarantees the balance for either side. Okay? If you don't cross over the middle, which a lot of people forget to do, what they do is they cut one side and cut another side, and then when they go to check it, they've got 2 uneven and off balance bits. So always check in the centre. Another thing you can do is use your mirror. So when you're working, use your mirror and visualise your expanded shape. So I know I want my shape to be like this, half a moon, like this. Okay? So by working and being aware of my shape and visualising my shape, I know where the hair should be coming out from straight away. So 1, 2, 3. Another piece of advice I could give you guys actually, when you're doing this, let me show you. So let's say, for example, I'm cutting this section here, okay? What I would do is take my section, like this. Now watch, put your comb, put your finger, and comb the hair onto your finger. Then from that point, you can go straight up off the base. That way you can control the root. Come on, idea? That way I can guarantee that the hair's coming straight off its base. Okay, so I'll show you again. Come in this under them. Is the lighting okay, or should I come around to the light?
I think it's fine, the light.
Can you see better like that?
Yeah,
Come
it's
in
nice. Perfect.
Okay, so take your section, place your comb, wrap the hair over the comb, place your finger on the hair that's next to the section. Then comb it onto your finger and then go straight up. And that way, you're pulling the hair straight out from the base. And what you're looking for, when you get to the end, obviously, should be a round shape. Okay? That's what we're looking for. Good. So Ped, you know when it comes to scissors over comb, you talked about working in columns, yeah? You talked about working consistently.
Yep.
Is there any tips you can give in relation to placement of scissor on the comb itself to guarantee length or consistency,
definitely.
or anything like that?
There's a lot of questions that happen when you're doing skin fades. It's more, what's the most important thing? Is it the silhouette or is it the fade? Yeah? And it's a difficult one. I asked an Italian guy today, I said to him, what's the most important thing? Is it the machine or is it the coffee beans? And he went, hey! And it's a bit like that with silhouette and fading. You know, they're both equally important. You know, I think there are situations where you have to, how can I say, you have to maybe prioritise one over the other, just purely because sometimes imperfections can force you to have to make choices. But in an ideal scenario, you know, you wouldn't have to make that choice and you'll give them equal priority. So Johnny's question about tips, you know, regarding scissor placement, comb placement, you know, that all of them kind of things really help in terms of either fading or in terms of silhouette. So let's start with fading. So if I'm fading, I can use different parts of the comb. Yeah. So I can use the front of it, the tips of it, and I can use the teeth of it right towards the base. All right. So if you look at it straight down the shaft of the comb, it's wider at this point and thinner at the tips. So you know, a lot of people are taught to kind of keep the bottom blade parallel with this part here. All right, but you can actually work up towards the tips to get a lot closer. For example, if I get in here, if I focus on the tips at the front, I can get a shorter length, where if I try to cut that hair at the back of the comb, then I wouldn't be able to get any hair in that area. All right, so really good tip, you know, in terms of position on the comb. Obviously you have to be careful if you're going to the front that you've got the hair elevated in the right angle, not to create lines. All right, because it's quite easy when you're going that way. If you come at the top through here, you can really create lines. So it's almost like you have to come in and just make sure you just angle out slightly, just to lift the hair off. Okay. That's one tip. Another tip could be for fading, could be the blades, the position of the blade. So I could come up, but I also could come down. So I could point the blades inwards. All right, so in both cases, when I'm going up, I'm focused on the bolt to be closer to the skin and the tips to be further away. When I'm coming down, the opposite, so the tips closer and the bolt further away. So if I take the bolt too close to the head shape, I'm going to lose the graduation through the sides.
So Ryan is asking you again, why did you choose the clipper and not the scissor?
So I must have cut a hyped. Why did you use this? Maybe that was an old one. Maybe that was the original question. Maybe you have to go up. Is it the same question, Ryan? Did we miss it on the first feed? If we missed it on the first feed, I'll have a go at it again.
Can I just bring your attention to what I'm about to do? So I've cut my mechanical shape, okay? And one more time. Before you do this, before you do what I'm about to do, I always want you to do this. So if you check properly, remember our horizontal shape should be round and our vertical shape should be round. So if I pull a random section, let's do in the center back, okay? And then if you film over my shoulder, take an even, consistent section, okay? And you comb the hair up. It should be a round shape, okay? And it should be clean, okay? So if I pick any place on the head, it should be consistent. So now if I take a vertical section in the same point, and then off you go on that side, and comb the hair down, and comb the hair out. It should be consistent in regards to the shape of it. It should be round. Okay? Okay.
I've got more tips if you want.
Yep, I'm just going to move into pointing and then you've got them all yours. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the shape and I'm going to point into all of the hair to loosen the hair through. So let me give you a few tips when it comes to pointing. Now we talk about counting while we cut hair, we talk about counting our sections, we talk about counting our over direction and our elevation. Now this is to do with pointing. So if you elevate the hair out from the base, okay, and then if you go behind, and, yeah, this way, perfect. So one of the problems people have is when they are scissor over combing, so when they're pointing, sorry, they're far too random. So they do this, okay? Now the problem with this is that you can never stop exactly at the same point. So rather than thinking it as up and down like this, think of it as left and right with your elbow. So open and close your scissor and move across like that. Okay? That way you're going the same depth every single time. Okay? Another thing you can do is count. So for example, every time you point, you count a certain amount. So rather than just pick the hair up and just go for it, what you should do or what I would recommend you do, sorry, is elevate the hair, and then start here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, now don't just keep pointing, comb the hair through, because the hair that you've cut is still there. So don't go 13, 13 and keep going. Go 13 and then go again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And again. Now obviously when you become more confident in that, you do it very quickly. Yeah? And you get into the rhythm. You kind of know the rhythm. And I'm going to do this throughout my haircut. I'm going to point 13 times into every single section, both vertically and horizontally. Okay? And what that's going to do is going to loosen up all the hair. Then I'm going to cut my external shape, and then I'm going to cut the fringe, and I should be done. Okay? Tell us some more tips, buddy.
Oh, come over, Andrea. Okay, so next tip. Don't always think that the comb has to be horizontal, and that goes the same with the blade when you're skin fading. So let's start with the blade. So I spoke about pointing up and pointing down. You can come across horizontally with the blade as well, but a great one is diagonal. Horizontal is quite dangerous. You know, it's the one that probably you're going to achieve lines with. Diagonal is nice because you can come off the shape and just really get a nice fade, and it really helps with the silhouette. With the comb, the same. So as I come through against the grain of the hair, the direction of the hair, you know, the hair lifts up. This is how we're all taught. We're taught in this manner to go against the grain, to be able to lift the hair up, you know, and all the hair falls into the teeth really nicely. All right, but sometimes when you're thinking about silhouettes and even shading, you know, coming across diagonally, you know, you get to see the diagonal shape. Coming across vertically, you get to see the vertical shape. You know, so you just have to be kept mindful of your scissor and comb position. I think where a lot of people go wrong with scissor over comb is they don't think about the distances. All right, and what I mean by that is when we're scissor over combing, we're creating shape. Yeah, we're not just removing hair. All right. So how do we create shape? We create shape in two ways. We create shape by the distance that the comb is away from the skin. All right. So obviously, the closer the comb is to the skin, the ability I have greater ability to cut shorter hair. The closer the blade is to the comb, I have greater ability to cut the hair shorter. But I can move this comb away from the skin. Yeah. So as I come up and I start to build length, you know, the comb's no longer touching the skin, and as I come away, the scissors no longer touching the comb. All right, so it's all about them distances and changing them distances throughout the vertical shape, because that's in effect how you're building your triangular shape. You know, you're changing the distance as you work up the vertical shape. You know, and it's just being mindful of that. That's the fade. That is the you know, what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for it horizontally. I'm looking straight down at it. Yeah, just step back, Andrea. So I want to be in a position where I can look over the top of it. Yeah. Then also I want to be in a position where I can look across it. Yeah, across it. You know, so coming at different angles with your scissors, coming at different angles with your comb, really gives you a greater ability to blend, you know, your fade from skin into hair. All right. So, any questions, Andrea?
Yeah, I have one question from Ryan, and
Go on.
so why did you decide to use clipper versus scissor over comb to tighten your shape?
Good. Okay, so it did cut out during that answer. Okay, so really good question from Ryan Bush. Ryan Bush is based in. He was originally from Port Elizabeth, South Africa, and now he's recently moved to Cape Town. Wish you all the best, you and Crystalline, all the best in Cape Town in your new project. Yeah, so great question. So when I was over teaching the guys in South Africa, I was really quite strong with them, strict with them, and I made them sweat, basically. I made them do it the hardest way possible. and that is to just work off the skin, no clipper, and just create the skin fade using the blade. It is a beautiful approach to cutting hair, and it is very therapeutic, to achieve it. A little bit like scissor over comb. I love scissor over comb because it just, you get into that zone, that rhythm, and it is very repetitive, and it's great. I love. You either love it or you hate it, and generally, if you haven't put enough hours in, it's the reason why you don't enjoy it. And then, I just want to, in the interest of time, get that shape in as quickly as possible, and then show you how to skin fade without using the clipper as well as with the clipper. But if I remove the bulk of the hair with the clipper, it just makes it easier time-wise in these scenarios. In a salon situation, again, when we teach our staff, we teach them without the clipper, to be able to have that skill in their repertoire, to be able to challenge themselves, and maybe sometimes doing it the most difficult way, makes it, when you do it the most simplest way, puts a different perspective on things as well. So I apologise, Ryan, because I know that when I was out there and I was teaching you guys, I made you do it all with the scissor. But yeah, I'm sure you're grateful for it now.
Thank you to you, Ryan.
It's given you another tool, another weapon to be able to pull out and use. And I know I've given myself enough hours doing it, and it is a really difficult thing to kind of break psychologically, because a lot of people, they look at it and they get scared of it. But I think once you put enough haircuts under your belt, you actually find it quite, you'll actually be surprised how much control you can have with it. What do you think, John?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I think sometimes people tend to want to rush to get to a finished result. When I watch people cut hair with clippers, I love it because I love watching them manipulate the
skill
and things like that.
Yeah, with the tool.
And I love working with clippers, but at the end of the day, I know how to work with clippers and I know how to do skin fades without a clipper, and that's what we're trying to say. Try to celebrate both skill sets, because once you've got it in your locker, you can do anything.
Johnny, we have one question for you. Okay. It's from Gina, I think, or Gina.
Okay, hi Gina.
She missed half of the video and she's asking you why you choose round vertical shape and not round horizontal. Was his decision based on density of hair or the style he was going for?
Okay, so actually, Gina, the reception obviously broke down, so I do apologise if it cut out halfway through, but my haircut is actually round horizontally and round vertically. The reason why I chose it to be round horizontally and round vertically is because I was obviously working on the base, okay, which meant my horizontal shape is round. The only place the horizontal shape isn't round was in the front, because I over-directed 1, 2 and 3, 2 and 3 to section 1. At section 4, I came out from the base, and section 3 went to section 4 as the guide, okay? Are we still live? Is everything still okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so now I'm going to work into this triangular area, which is going to be my fringe, okay? Now, what I want to try to do is I want to try to show off our cheekbones and our lips and our eyes. So the way to do that is to basically bring the length so it hugs that area there, okay? So how do you do that? If you pull the hair to one side like this, if you come all that section, because the hair is quite fine through the front, I can do this in one go. If I pull it all across here and cut a square line, what's going to happen is it's going to get shorter to longer on this side. If I come onto that side and do the same thing, it's going to get shorter to longer. I want it to become more of a bold, rounded shape. So what you do with that is you comb it straight out, okay?
Thank you, Gina.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you for asking the question. So you come straight out, you place the hair where you want it to sit, okay? I want it to be just above her lips, okay? So one more time, I comb it out, I place my fingers where the lips are, I comb it up, make sure I've got lots of tension, and I cut a square line, okay, like this. Now the reason I cut a square line is because even though I'm cutting a square line, once I drop it, it's actually going to be round, and the reason for that is basically the hairline. The hairline curves, so if you look carefully now, if I comb the hair down, you can see the shape gets longer towards the sides, okay? And the reason for that is because of the hairline. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to soften that through. So what you do, and then we'll come over here. I don't want to layer it, as in layer it internally. I just want to soften the line. So I place the hair in the comb and I gently point into the hair. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to diffuse it, because I don't want there to be any strength on this line. Again, comb it through. I don't want there to be any strength. And really, really soften that line. So this is basically a pointing technique. So I'm using my blades to go directly into the hair. I'm not going on an angle, and you can see it just completely diffuses that line. So thank you for the question. If anyone has any more questions about layering, I know that sometimes people struggle with layering, and one of the biggest reasons why they struggle with it is because they're working so far away from the head. It's quite hard to control their shape. So what I would say is use the chair, manipulate the chair to go higher and lower so that your arms are closer to your body, because the closer your arms are to your body, the more control you have. What this is doing, this is basically just softening all the line. So what it's doing in the end is it's framing the lips, okay? So when the hair moves around and it comes back, it's always going to sit at this point here. Okay? That brings the attention to this point. Now please guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, don't worry, because I've got lots of things to talk about in regards to freehand. So freehand is a technique that's used where you physically do not hold the hair, with one of your hands. So in this scenario, I'm using the hand to support it. So we don't class this as a freehand technique. We class this as a personalizing technique. Freehand would be this. So what you do is you pick up the hair, okay, place it where you want it to be, and then now with a free hand, so this hand's not being used, I basically just soften the line. So that's what we class as freehand. Whereas things like pointing or anything that involves using both hands to work the shape, we call that personalizing, because you don't actually have a free hand.
Okay, so going more to the top of the haircut now. I'm finishing it up with a fade. So I'm also using other techniques to work the fade. There's these ones where you can point into the hair. Francesco has slightly coarser hair in this area, so actually the choice of length in them darker areas, I can actually be quite aggressive with them and take them down to try and get the same colour as the hair around it. But then sometimes you just get these little darker areas that you can just use the points of your scissors. You know, the more you want to take out, the more against the growth, the more you just want to be gentle, just go parallel with the growth. Alright, it looks more scary than it really is, you know, like just obviously if you come in at the right angle, you know, I'm cutting on the way out as well, if that's noticeable. As I close my blade, my thumb's closing on the way out, not on the way in, and that's just an extra little insurance policy that I'm not going to nip any skin areas or anything. Alright, I'm just resting that bottom blade, just gently allowing it to touch the head and just coming back on itself. Alright, okay, so look in the mirror, Andrea. How does it look in the mirror? Did you get a good picture in the mirror? So this is more using fade. It's probably best that if I had a black t-shirt on to kind of see the fade. So really assess the silhouette Alright, so when I'm looking at it, you know, good thing to do. And probably just a little bit, see that little bit of length there, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's something there. So I can go back through it in two ways. I can either go back with my scissor over comb, or I can go through it with surface cutting. So if you just get the angle, and you see, we just come in just gently on the surface of the hair. Alright, because his hair, it lends itself for me to be able to do that, because it's just sticking out for me, so it's a nice technique to be able to really control silhouette. So that's not so much shading, that's more kind of looking at the silhouette. Alright, so once I've happy with that, turn the head, lean the head forward, back, you know, don't just assess the silhouette from one profile, assess it from many profiles. Alright, I'm looking at the space, I'm not necessarily looking at the shading, I'm looking at the space. Alright, so I'm looking at all of this, and that's my shape. That's what I'm looking at. Right, all the way around. Alright, and I'm looking at that part there, I'm looking at all the way through there. So just the edge of the shape. Alright, I've assessed my shading, yeah? Now I need to assess my silhouette. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to use some personalising, refining techniques and some freehand techniques. This area here, I feel the density is quite high. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lean the head towards me, get on my tiptoes a little bit, and I'm just going to come in and just parallel with the hair. Alright, and this is obviously a freehand technique, pointing, alright, because I'm really making sure that I'm going in parallel to the hair shaft. I don't want to go against the growth of the hair, otherwise I'll remove a lot of length and weight. Alright, so it's a little bit more gentle. Alright, it looks quite scary, but again, you know, caution, you know, is about cutting on the way out. I'm not cutting on the way in, I'm cutting on the way out as I cut. And then comb the hair away, let you see the densities that's coming out. It's important to comb it every so often so you're not recut in the same place. And then I'm going to use surface cutting as well. Yeah, just get inside it a little bit. And I'm going to do that all the way through the roundness, and then I'm going to focus on this last triangle on top, then I'm done.
Cool. And then I'm going to come in. So, in this scenario, I'm going to cut my external shape, okay? I'm going to show you a little tip when it comes to working your line. Can you see how the hair's flicking on me here? The reason it's flicking is because the hair's hitting the shoulder blade. Because they're standing up, I'm obviously trying to get away from the chair. So the best thing to do here is do this. Get your model to hold onto the chair, and then get her to stand. So from here, I want her to stand back, one step, a big step, but hold onto the chair. Okay, now what's happening is she's stretching her shoulder blade. So what's happening is this is becoming a flatter surface to work on. Okay, when the hands are back, the shoulders sit back. So
you've been working out, innit? You've been working out. Get them wings.
Because Chase is go. So when the shoulders are out, when the arms are out, the shoulders become stretched and become a flatter surface to work on. Okay. So head down for me slightly. And then if you come over here for me, be careful with the light behind you. So stand over there. Good. And hopefully everyone can see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my comb to secure the hair, keep my comb square, and I'm basically going to cut a square line.
So we have one question from Daniel Birk, I think.
Okay.
How long does it take you guys working out a new collection, and what are your inspiration for that?
Great question.
It's a brilliant question. Who's that from?
From Daniel Birk, sorry if I'm saying wrong.
Hey Daniel. So basically, that's a really nice question. So for those of you who follow Allilon and are aware of our collections, what you'll know is that Allilon's collections are never about Allilon. So it's always about connecting people's stories and telling people's stories. Usually what tends to happen is we tend to find a muse who often kind of walks into our lives, kind of comes into our journey as we're going through our journey. And we tend to create stories that basically celebrate their world. and often connect their world into our world. So in this scenario, for example, coming up now, we're planning our latest collection. We're planning it as we speak, okay? And it will basically be, I'm not going to tell you who it's about, but it will be telling somebody's story and the influence of that person's story in relation to how we connect it into our hair. And often when people look into our collections, just before I keep talking about that, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing now. I've cut a strong line. Now I'm going through and I'm pointing straight into the hair. And I'm only using my thumb to close the blade. So I'm going into the same distance, and what I'm doing in effect, I'm softening the line. So even though I've cut a strong line, by doing this, I'm basically softening the line underneath.
Okay, so I'm coming through with the same technique in the crown, but I'm just lifting the hair a little bit now. So first of all, I came through and allowed the hair to fall in its natural position and just come into there. And now I'm just to be able to go a little bit deeper, or just have a little bit more control, I'm just using the wide tooth comb, just to be able to really get some air in there. And I think this is really good. You know what we spoke about earlier about squashing silhouettes. You know, sometimes when you create these kind of fades, it's really easy to create length. Yeah, you're really kind of stretching the shape from top to bottom, and sometimes you don't need to adjust the length so much. Sometimes it's just the weight of it that needs to be adjusted to be able to help kind of squash the shape together a little bit more.
So we have one question for Johnny, and is, do you cut a lot of your long hair dry, and how do you stop the static when you do it?
Good question. Let me just finish the previous question in regards to the collection.
Yeah.
So we basically tend to, time frame wise, I'll give you a prime example. This collection we're preparing for now is going to be done within 3 weeks. Obviously the muse I've already found, we've already spoken to, you know, they're up for being used as a muse for our collection. So all that's happening. So the actual shoot itself and the styling of the clothes and the creating of the clothes usually take about, I'd say, a month to produce, depending on how many outfits. If it's just 2 outfits, for example, now we only need 1 because we're doing the shoot. So technically we only need 1 for this particular outfit for now. So that will take us a month to produce. If we need 12 outfits, which usually we do, we tend to have obviously a main designer, but then they obviously have their own teams to produce volume of units. So it usually takes between 3 to 4 months to produce the clothes. The music for the collection obviously has to connect with the collection, so connect with the collection but also with the muse. So I often tend to kind of talk to the muse and really understand what kind of music they're into, also based on the kind of feeling of the collection, if it's supposed to be something quite soft and angelic, or if it's something a bit more harder. That tends to affect the music that we choose.
Johnny usually says to me, if it makes you cry, and he hears some music, if it makes you cry, if it provokes some kind of emotion, you know, then it's gonna.
I really believe that though. I really believe that when you're choosing music, you need to feel it. It can't just be, you know, it needs to do something to you. It needs to either get you excited, or make you really calm, or make you just feel really beautiful.
Or make you want to cry.
Or make you want to cry. Personally, I really love music that kind of makes me get a bit emotional. Right, so that's that. It takes 3 months to produce the images. So it takes about a month to produce the images. In other words, any post that needs to be done, selection, we usually select on the day, straight after we shot. Have a seat for me. So that normally is done on the day. Makeup ideas. Madeline loves makeup. It's one of her things. So I like to kind of get. I mean, if I'm honest, I like to have everyone's input, but I know Madeline really likes to get involved with the makeup ideas. She's really into that. Obviously, we bang out the idea in regards to the shapes, the cuts, and the choices of colours with the team, with the creative team. We tend to have like a theme that everyone kind of works off, but at the same time, we leave it to everybody's personal inspiration or what they get from the muse. So what we tend to do is get the model, And on the day of the shoot, the day of the prep, the team just express themselves and do whatever they feel they're into at that time. Madeline and the colour team plan the colours a bit more accurately. I'm really looking forward to the next one because I think the next one's going to be quite beautiful actually. It's going to be quite, I'll give you a little hint, it's going to be quite smoky. Okay, the other question was about cutting dry hair, cutting long hair, remind me?
How do you control the static?
Okay, so number one, before you blow dry, you need to use really good product just to make sure the hair is hydrated. So in this scenario, I use Day Day, which is a moisturizing product. I used Love Smooth from Davines, which is an amazing moisturizing product. It's very, 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 very water-based. Can you see that? It's quite runny. So it's really good for moisture. And then what I use is the oil, which again is a beautiful oil, which you can see the shine it gives instantly. Okay, so those are the three products that I used. Then when I'm working the hair, to avoid the hair becoming static, I'm using the wide end of the beauty. So very, very minimal amount of static on the hair because I'm not getting a lot of friction by combing the hair. The only friction that's actually being used is coming from my hand. So when I'm combing the hair, there's absolutely no friction, but then when I grab the hair, I've got really strong tension. Yeah, that way I'm basically not creating any excess static. So that's one way of avoiding static on the hair. So I've come to the end of my shape. I've gone for a really soft, round layered shape. Okay, I wanted it to be quite curved, so by using a round layer, basically the hair, when I do this in a minute, I get a nice bounce out of the hair, and you have that kind of rounder feeling. Okay, all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to literally just iron the hair slightly away from the face and slightly back off the face, but you can see the overall shape. It looks like healthy hair again. Yeah, it looks clean, it looks balanced. Okay, I'm just simply going to iron the hair backwards away from the face. So I'm going to stand at the back. I'm going to get her to tilt her head up towards the ceiling, so she's looking up at the ceiling for me. Perfetto, grazie mille, grazie mille, grazie, prego. I'm just going to iron the hair backwards. I'm going to roll it, look. I'm just going to roll the hair back like this. And that way, because my haircut's done now, I'm not worried about the bend in the hair moving in a specific way. So I'm just rolling the hair back away from the face. And even though the hair is going to rock forward, when I move it with my fingers, it will sit back a lot better. Just roll the hair back and iron it once, twice, and then let it cool down before I bring the head down. With the fringe, I'm just going to bevel the end so I get a nice roll onto the cheekbone.
Ante said it's beautiful, John.
Who did?
Ante.
Oh, thank you, Ante.
The biggest fan.
Oh, she's my biggest fan.
Okay, just come over here. I'm just going to summarise. Just working through, just cleaning up the outlines. Just really stretching the skin. Alright, just to allow them blades. Focusing on a few hairs, not a lot of hair at the same time. I think that's the key when you're working on the skin like that. You know, it's really easy just to kind of think of everything as a whole. You know, but really just focus on a few hairs at a time.
Look who's come, Eddie.
Yeah, I've seen him.
By the Italian stallion behind us, Mr. Gianluca. Gianluca, come stai?
For those of you who missed the first introduction, we're basically in Parma. And we're in the Davines head office. Alright, so we're with all of our Davines family, and you know, everyone's kind of closing up now. The labs are finishing, all of the warehouses all closed up, but about an hour and a half ago this place was like Piccadilly Circus. There's people walking in and out because we're actually in the canteen in the Davines head office. So it's kind of like the definitely where the most traffic is happening. And this gentleman behind us is called Gianluca.
Hi everyone.
He works with Davines now. He has his own salon in Pisa. And he used to work with us at ENA a few years ago. And he's still a very big friend of ours. And yeah, so we're catching up on a lot of people. Let me just summarise what I've done on the top. So that triangle section, that last section that I didn't really do too much to it, to be honest. I used a combination of personalising and refining. I used a bit of pointing, but I also used a little bit of weaving as well, which is just taking out little pieces of hair just to create a little bit more air inside. Alright, so I just came across and just emptied it out, and then emptied the ends out as well, because I kind of quite like the length, the way it's bending and the way it's moving. I haven't really dried it as such, and I quite like the way the hair's got that bend to it. You know, I did leave a little bit of a detail behind. I didn't really speak about it. I think he needed it. I think that little bit of length there just kind of squashes the shape. I think if I take that away, if you imagine that not being there, I think it would just be too long, the shape. So little details like that, you know, can be put in not just for fun, but actually to take your eye away from, you know, if the shape is too long. Because I've tried to squash it as much as possible, because obviously if I take that tighter, I'm squashing the shape. I've taken that down, I've emptied it as well. So I've really tried to squash it, but I was keeping that as a last resort. And I think I'm going to maintain it. I could always just have taken it off at any stage, but I decided to keep it. Alright, and just got that fade all the way through. Alright, with that little bit of length. And I think profile-wise, I think it really works on Francesco. Alright, I hope you like it.
Cool, and over here, just to finish off, what we've done, we've beveled the ends of the hair around the front of the face, okay? You can see it's a slightly rounder shape, so the hair's got a nice bit of movement to it. You can also see the little fringy area that I've basically put constantly now. If you look in the mirror, or if you look at the camera, it's okay. Zoom out a little bit, go over there. You can see that every single time I move the hair, it keeps bringing attention back to the cheekbone and the lip area every single time. And every single time I move it, I'll have that kind of bouncy, soft, rounded look. It has a lot of freedom to it.
So stand them up together.
Let's do it.
Husband and wife.
Perfect. Come over here with this handsome fellow. Good, so these are our two looks. Feel free to shake your hair a little bit. Let's see how it moves. You can see how it moves quite rounded, okay? And the reason for that is because obviously it was a round layer, okay? Externally, obviously I've cut the line, turn around a little bit. So it basically all sits quite soft on the edge, okay? Shoulder length. You've got all the layering inside here, which is basically a round layer working on the base, okay? By softening the outline, it just kind of diffuses the whole thing. Brilliant as I've come. Hopefully some really nice layering.
Just give us a spin, Francesco. Okay, we're good.
So, thank you so much for joining in, guys. Thank you for visiting us in the Davines head office in Parma. A little surprise for you guys. In October, will it be next year? In theory, the new head office. Yeah. It's October, isn't it?
I think it's May.
I know?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, Davines are producing a whole new academy.
Hopefully.
In Parma, which is an amazing building. We're going to try and see it tonight, see the structure of it anyway. They're growing at an immense rate, Davines, and in a really nice, healthy way. So hopefully one day we'll be filming it from a Davines head office in another area. Thank you to Andrea. Thank you to our beautiful models.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week, same time but different place. See you later.